Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Blue Room. Today we'll be discussing the development of extended stay brands and models. It sounds a very wide topic, and it is indeed, but brands and their significance in the context of the marketplace and in the context of a very dynamic marketplace at the moment. Before we, I would like to thank our panelists for joining us today. Wesley Maria from the Eden Group, Ben Davis from Saxbury, and Michelle Dan from Sojourn. I'll run very quickly the sponsors video. Thank you to the sponsors of the Blue Room and Saba Networking. So Quality in Tourism, Safe, Clean and Legal, Accreditation, the Eden Group, and Integrum PMS by AV Quest. And welcome back again. I'm going to bring the panel onto the stage now. So Michelle from Sojourn, welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Richard.
Wesley from the Eden Group, and Wes, and Ben from Saxbury. So welcome everyone. I keep hiding under the banner here, so forgive me if my eyes completely disappear. It's a good job I'm not wearing a mask. You wouldn't see any of me. So yeah, what are we talking about today? So brands and models in the extended stay sector, extended stay marketplace. Maybe if to lend some context, I'll list what I believe to be the kind of characteristics of a brand. A brand being what gives a company personality, you might say, and in marketing terms, sales and marketing terms, what can be used to differentiate one company from another, and to enforce that kind of personality. In connected with reputation of a company, recognition of the brand, loyalty to the brand, consistency, so that a brand will always offer the same standards, the same products. Credibility. A brand attracts talent if it has a reputation, so that's an advantage of a brand. Offers shared values and gives confidence to clients, and in our particular case to guests. So if I were to look at brands that's in the sector, I'll go through a kind of a timeline of the emergence of the brand really in hospitality, and then we can take it from there. By the way, if you hear noises in the background, it's builders downstairs, I'm afraid. So Hilton were launched in 1919, followed under a decade later by Marriott. So the hotel brands launched just after the turn of the century, you might say. 1960 was the watershed for for the corporate housing sector and service departments subsequently. 1960 went with the launch of Oakwood. In the UK, 1981, Globe Apartments. Back in the States, 1983, Embassy Suites, so the all-suite product was kind of, moving around there, emerging from the hotel market. Clarendon Apartments, 1988. And then at the turn of the decade, 1990, we had Suite America. 1995 was the big disruptor, really, wasn't it, when the internet came along and changed a lot of things. So online bookings, we had VRBO launching in 1995, Booking.com in 1996. I believe I'm right in saying Bridge Street 1996, although shoot me down in flames if that's not right. Holiday Lettings 1998. 1999 we had National Corporate Housing and Synergy, Marriott Executive Stay. We're almost finished, so don't fall, in the UK, then, with on the agency side, 2000, Hot Digs turned into Silverdoor. Airbnb launched 2008, and Situ, another large booking agency in the UK, well, globally. 2015, Expedia took over VRBO, seeing the OTAs kind of taking over the holiday platforms. And 2016, arguably, and Ben, that might be a good place to start, really. But 2016, Section 24, and the emergence of a property strategy called R2SA, where tax changes resulted in the emergence almost of an entirely different sector that was serving an entirely different marketplace, houses and contractors. But before we go any further, I should give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, and then from yourself, after talking about yourselves, a little bit about your company, your brand. So 3-4 minutes or something like that, maybe. And Michelle, could I turn to you first, please?
Absolutely. I probably won't take 3 to 4 minutes because I'm a fast talker. But my name is Michelle. I'm with Sojourn. I've been in the corporate housing industry for going on 20 years. I'm kind of dating myself there. But started in Philly with an owner-operator type. It was an apartment community, and they actually owned their own apartments, and we rented corporates through them. So I've been in the setup process, and then I went to a company where we had core inventory and quite a bit of it. And now I work for a company called Sojourn. And I worked with the owner previously at my last company. She started her own business, and I kind of started on board with her. So we set up furnished apartments. We do furniture rental. We do pretty much, you name it, we'll try to accommodate your needs. That's what I got.
Thanks, Michelle. Forgive the pauses sometimes. It's me unmuting the mic. It sounds a bit like when you're on Clubhouse occasionally because there's that pause, but I'll try to minimize those pauses. Yeah, thanks, Michelle, for that summary. Wesley, can I turn to you, please?
Yeah, definitely. Wesley Moria. I've been in this industry for about 7 to 8 years now. Started off with Bridge Street, then looked after the Adagio in Amsterdam for a couple of years before relocating from Amsterdam to London to join Eden as their global supply business development manager. That was about a year ago. And in my role, I basically sit between the sales department and our partner network, mainly looking after advising corporates with their service department inquiries globally. Eden as a brand was launched in 2019, but the history goes back until 1997 when Seiko Apartments was founded. And but I'll tell you a bit more about those different brands in a while.
Okay, perfect. Wesley, thank you. And Ben, over to you, please. And then I'll probably leave the mic with you. But yeah, over to you first of all for the introduction, and then we'll come on to questions.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm Ben Davis. I'm co-founder of a business called Saxbury, and we are apartment hotel and service department real estate agents. So we work with developers and landlords who are converting their properties or developing new apartment hotels, and we bring them to market for operator search and selection, providing advice along the way, full life cycle consulting. My background is before 5 years of working with this business, I was originally involved in the corporate housing sector in various different roles. I'd worked for an agency that was later bought by Silverdor. I've worked for Seiko. It was the company that Wesley works for now. So yeah, I've had a good background in serviced accommodation here in the UK, but now just focusing on real estate.
Interesting, and thank you, Ben. And phenomenally interesting will be your insights into the sector. And if I may stay with you, Dan, just to kick off the conversations, if you like. So, when did you first start in the service department?
My first 2005. 2005, I joined an agency that was a booking agency nationwide for temporary accommodation, and my aim was combination of bringing on new booking clients, but also finding new providers to work with as well, because you see it was really such a new thing here at that time. It started to grow, the presence of the agency grew and the popularity of booking serviced accommodation grew. But you've got to remember that we were, kind of 5-6 years at least behind the US as usual. Corporate housing began a very long time ago in the US, was popular in the US and also in Australia and APAC. Mainly for businesses relocating and for road warriors traveling around needing a place to stay for a month. But in the UK, it was less popular, and it was definitely a real concept sell. We were promoting the alternatives of staying in a flat rather than a hotel, but it was always based on price. Get something cheaper and be better for your employees was the kind of mantra. And kind of look where it's come now. It's really gone full circle now, where service department rates, certainly in the key cities, trade above the hotels.
Really, that's interesting, because like you're saying, it used to be the kind of the service departments were presented as 30% more space and a third of the third or 33% cheaper and that kind of thing.
There's a reason why that people only ever mention three things, is because they had nothing else to say about them, because the fit out and the furniture was so bland. These were in locations that you didn't go to for fun. This is a business location, Thames Valley or somewhere outside of town place. Specifically for business or perhaps for people relocating, and there was really nothing to say about them because they were brandless. A place in a location, and they were operated by somebody that you and I knew, but nobody else knew. But you know what? Still now, if you ask the guy on the street, what's a service department? Most of them say, "Is it Airbnb?" They have no clue.
Don't remind me of that survey that our good friends did at International Hospitality Media in the City of London. The number of people with marketing budgets that cried when they saw that survey, in those interviews. Yeah, no, you're right. And corporate brand used to be kind of one of those things that was mentioned back then, wasn't it? It's all very uninspiring as such. And it started then, the service departments. There were service departments aimed at corporate relocation, expats, perhaps wealthy Middle Eastern clients and US clients coming in the summertime, that sort of thing. I believe is probably, and best kept secret probably, which is not a good idea if you're a business, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you take it back 10 years, you could probably count on one hand, maybe if you're lucky, two hands, the amount of service department operated. Was largely dominated by American brands, Oakwood and Bridge Street. To a lesser degree, firms like Seiko that operated, mainly from operating, buildings that they owned, but also small rent to rent. You mentioned Clarendon as well, but you really didn't have anything like the number of brands, and you certainly didn't have leisure guests staying in these properties, save for, the Middle Eastern guests that would come over during post Ramadan and would book out 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom flats in the most expensive areas for their family and entourage. But you would have never found a leisure guest staying in a service department. They wouldn't have known what they're getting. But we've come a long way from there with accreditation, with standardization of service, with brands, and now more so purpose-built apartment hotels.
That's very interesting, actually. So build to rent, is that the same? Is that
not quite operational? Without wanting to dominate this speech here, the build to rent. The way I look at it is this: build to rent is what Michelle might call multifamily accommodation over in the States. It's where a group of investors or a pension fund gets together and funds the development of a large block of flats available for immediate rental. And this is generally people that will be staying for long periods, so not serviced accommodation. This is private rented accommodation, and it's really it's what follows on from, in Britain we've always had buy-to-let landlords and non-professional landlords. Well, now it's going the other way. You're seeing large build-to-rent multifamily investments springing up all over the country in the key business cities, and these properties are a home that's available for somebody for 12 months to check in. So they're not treated as guests so much. These are more long-term residents. But the difference between an apartment hotel and build-to-rent is the apartment hotel has a hotel license. It attracts people that want a home from home experience, but they're not living in the flats. They're probably staying 3 days, maybe 7 days if they're lucky.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Ben. Thank you. And Michelle, so if I could turn to you, please, with that, because you've heard how it developed in the UK, and it was very much a case that a brand would need to, or there weren't even brands in those days, very few of them, but a service department operator would need to pay upfront rent and then hope and pray that they could find guests. Whereas, am I right in saying that it's different in the States? It works differently. So it's kind of supplying just in time corporate housing as such. You get the inquiry and then you find the place. Is that right?
Well, you know what, Richard? It varies. Because a lot of companies still do, like if you take your national corporate housing, if this is the question that you're asking, they do maintain core inventory where it's always set up, 12 months out of the year. And then they just hope to put heads in beds, basically. Not hope, but I'm sure that they do. But, you just rent them out and you can turn the apartments much quicker when you keep the core inventory. Whereas, if you're setting them up per as needed, it takes a few days to, get everything settled, get the furniture, get the utilities set up. And then, you're usually doing the longer term stays in that sense. Whereas, the corporations with core inventory have the capability to do the shorter term stays, a minimum 3 nights or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so those are the core inventory, which is the same as in the UK, but then
Richard, if I might just say, Richard, you mentioned about build to rent. The fact that the American operators in the past could just rent on demand is symptomatic of the fact that you have build to rent accommodation. We've never had build to rent accommodation here, so we've never had that opportunity. Maybe in the future you're going to see a reversal where operators can knock on the door of a block owned by Granger and say, "Hey, can we take 20 of your flats for the next 3 months?" You just don't know. I mean, it could totally come full circle because we're now in a position where you will see build-to-rent accommodation that we've never had before that's been prolific in the States for many years.
That's exciting. I get unbelievably excited about brands and product development, I have to say. It's great. That's very interesting. Wes, so the Eden Group, and you mentioned in your introduction, came out of Seiko. Seiko, we know and love them as one of the original brands in the market. I believe then private equity investment allowed great growth. But would you? And something that I'm very interested in is the unique position that with Eden, the umbrella of 3 brands. But over to you.
I'll clarify that. Yeah, so like I said, Seiko Apartments was founded in 97 and rebranded to Eden in 2019. So Eden is a brand new name. It's relatively new. but has been around quite some time. And in 2018, being acquired by Brookfield Asset Management is obviously the reason why we have seen so much growth for Eden, and we've been very successfully in growing the European portfolio the last couple of years, and we will be continuing that route thanks to them. So that's very exciting, a very exciting position to be in. So there's 3 brands under the Eden umbrella. Seiko, I suppose, is what you think of when you think of a traditional service apartment, very much catering for extended stays, studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and historically quite UK focused. So, you know, we have a strong presence in many of the UK main cities. Now, Lock is a brand that has seen immense growth, massive growth throughout Europe, with loads of new openings behind us, but also coming up. People from Europe may know Lehman Lock in Aldgate, which is quite well known in our industry, and was actually the first lock ever. I would say a lock building is very design-led, has the style of a boutique hotel, but then with the advantages of a service apartment. So more space than in a hotel. Locks are very much part of the community they're in. Have large communal areas, co-working spaces, restaurants on sites, and guests that stay in a lock will very much be invited to mingle with locals, be it via exhibitions from local artists, food events, music events on site. It's very much community focused. Then the 3rd brand is Cove, the newest brand, which launched, I'm going to say, around July this year, and is very much a next generation sanctuary for basically live in all modes, combining design that we see in Lock with technology to create flexible spaces for families and business travelers. A lot of work goes into the design. It's very stylish. It's very aspirational. I'm literally sitting in the new Cove here in Canary Wharf, which will open in, it's a bit of debate, November 16th, November 22nd, one of those 2. We will be opening here in the landmark Pinnacle. Very exciting property. Very spacious and really made for extended stays. And Lock, again, very much a community-focused brand. Cove, more focused on the apartments and having spacious apartments for the extended stays. I would say that hopefully clarifies the difference between the brands.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any differentiation there between, let's say, corporate, contractor, leisure, or even the generations that are likely to be attracted to each of the brands, do you think?
Well, a Lock with obviously the whole community feel and the co-working spaces, obviously you would think that would attract a more maybe a younger traveler, if you will, but which it does. But I'm always surprised by the fact that the Lock brand is very much adopted by extended stay and by corporate business, and I suppose it's after the pandemic that everybody feels very much inclined and happy that we're able to share time again and to interact with each other and to work with each other again. So it's great to see everybody come back together in for example, a Lock.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Wesley. Michelle, if I could, please, we'll kind of continue along the brand and model kind of discussion in a little while, but I'd love to understand a little bit more about Sojourn, please. So, as my understanding is that it's a platform, and you could book any other brands. You could book a Lock in London, could you? As an example, do you list other properties, or is it just your own?
we will work with third parties. So we'll certainly, if we have requests, you're obviously much more familiar with what's available in London than I would ever be. So we would reach out to you, see what we might be able to do, and we could third party apartments internationally. Sojourn's mostly nationwide. Obviously, growth is good. So if we could ever grow a little bit, that would be great. But that we basically do third party. We do setups as well. So somebody reaches out to us, and the platform is that we do have a platform. However, a lot of our communication is done with the individual or the guest or the client themselves. So they reach out to us with needs, and then we base those needs off of our conversation and provide housing options for them at that time.
Right.
So the online booking tool, I know a lot of people have been going that route, and I think that route is, if we're, with like those Y hotels or the Sonders of the world, everybody can, it's instant. You can book right there online and get a furnished or get a unit. And that works a lot. I think that works really well for the business traveler. But when you're looking for something a little long term, you might be a little more hands-on, and that's where the human factor, I think, comes into play a bit more.
Maybe we should touch on that whole discussion now, as it's kind of, as you brought it up, regarding technology versus the human touch as such, because there are a lot of discussions on various forums regarding technology. It's been developed, especially over COVID, with the check-ins and locking your apartments and the like. So you've got technology making life easier, but people still want that human touch as well. That's very important. They want the human touch, but on the other hand, we've got that situation regarding employment, that there are staff shortages. So for all that we want the human touch, maybe technology, so it's not necessarily technology driving this, but actually the fact that we can't get the staff to work certainly in hospitality, it's quite difficult. Does anyone have any views on that? Regarding, I suppose I would be saying to yourself, Ben. So I'll go around the gallery to yourself, Ben, though, regarding future kind of projects and the way that things are going. To yourself, Wes, regarding your own properties and whether they are being taken over by technology. Like in Japan, you've even got the robots at the front desk, haven't you? And then Michelle, not widespread, I guess, but and then Michelle, same question to you, really. Back to that technology versus people. What are your thoughts on that, or your observations, please, Ben?
So. Well, it's obviously here to stay, and everybody loves it. I was at an event the other day with the the mobility manager for Fidelity, and she told me that this. She explained this to the audience. In fact, that obviously technology plays a huge part, but the most important thing is she's got to know who you are first, right? It's not just a case, and to Michelle's point, you're not just going to look and book when you're dealing with business guests, or when you're responsible for your business guests, I guess their welfare, right? You're not just going to look and book anything. You need to make sure that your properties have been checked out and that you have a good relationship. And actually, more importantly, you've got a corporate rate that's established. Into the wider question about staffing, it's crazy, right? Everywhere throughout the world is struggling, and in particular during COVID, lots of people who worked in hospitality had a moment's pause to think, did they really enjoy it? And in particular, are they getting paid enough? And I think what you're probably seeing now is hospitality companies that are paying minimum wage on their sort of, let's say the most essential roles, are going to now have to start paying London living wage because they're just not going to get the staff. That, combined with Brexit, combined with all the other things that we all know and despise about the decisions that have been made here in Europe, big staff shortages. Of course, it filters through to the build as well, because if you're building a hotel, there's contractor shortages, there's labour shortages, there's everything from the fitting out of the property. It sounds pretty miserable, doesn't it? I think it can only get better, right? It can only get better. Yeah. And the thing is, looking at it from the positive angle, now the service department sector in particular is now something that does stand out. It is a clear industry in its own right. It's probably one of the fastest growing asset classes, certainly in Europe, if not within hospitality in general. It's overtaken hotels in general. So now it can, we hope, become an aspirational job. Somebody working for a service department or an apart hotel brand like Lock, for example.
Yeah, great, and nicely linked through to Wes there. So, Wesley, obviously yourself, really, do you see technology being used a lot in your brands, and one brand or another?
Yeah, so we don't have any robots downstairs here. At least, well, we're not open yet, so that could change. But I don't think we will. So we will have people here 24/7. One of the things that's very important for Eden as a brand, and which very much appealed to me, is the fact that it's very human-led. So and that is something that resonates well with me. So I think it will always be about the human interaction, and we see that with Luck, for example. At the same time, we have doors here that open with your mobile. So of course, we want seamless technology. We want things to be easy for our guests. So it's a combination of both, I suppose.
Thank you. And yourself, Michelle, what's your thoughts on that? Do is there a demand, for example, when you get an inquiry, particularly for anything involved in technology, that people want to either let themselves in? They don't like maybe reception desks around reception desks in the, if it's not an apart hotel, but is technology required? Is in demand in some areas, but still you want the personal contact. What do you think?
I think it varies so much. In our segment of business, we're working more with apartment communities. So we're renting out the apartments from them and then renting them furnished. So a lot of times people will pick up the keys from a leasing office or the 24-hour front desk, or we'll do meet and greets, which we've started doing again. So we'll go meet the client, provide the keys, and say hello. As far as the online booking and technology, obviously it's awesome, and I think it's always going to continue. And I think COVID expanded that quite a bit as to what you can do these days. I mean, look, we're doing virtual calls from the US over to the UK. And so I think technology is always going to be, up and coming. And a lot of people, you have to stay abreast of changes in order to, either survive or thrive a lot of times. But I think in our segment of business, I think that human touch and that human factor is just so important. And I think it's going to stay for a little while.
Yeah, indeed. And you, thank you. And you mentioned changes there. And that's... Sustainability is one of those things that is changing our market, isn't it? And therefore the models that will be developed. We'll come on to that maybe in a short while. I just want to say hello to the people on the call who are tuning in here. Valerie, I forgot to say, actually, please add your name. Although you can see the name of your company when you're making the comments in LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, we can't see them here. Valerie, though, good morning Deluxe Suites, tuning in from Phoenix, Arizona. Happy Thursday. Thanks, Valerie, and a great TikTok, by the way. So let's challenge our panel to do one of those ERC TikToks. Milton, hi, good to see you. Now then, Milton, you'll have to remind me of the company name. Forgive me. Hi, Richard, looking forward to this discussion. You'll shoot me for that. Raj from AV Quest, Richard and panel. Raj from AV Quest, we're looking forward to the discussion. Hi, Raj, good to see you. And pop in if you've got the link still for the stage. Then do come along. Christina. Now then, Michelle, if you shout out if forgive me, Christina. All of you put your company names in afterwards. It's a good opportunity to have a shout out for your company. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward as always. Thanks, Christina. Really appreciate it. Jacek from Silver Surface Apartments in Southampton. Hi Jacek, always good to see you. Farzana, thanks for the invite. And then from Jetstream Tech, thanks, Farzana. Whoops, I've lost my mouse button. There we go. Rebecca from my Relo Solution. How come everyone whose company name I know, they've actually put it in there? So Rebecca, good to see you as always. Maurizio from Journey, happy to connect. And there you go. So put your LinkedIn details on there as well in the chat. Don't hold back. Don't be shy. Andre, evening. Hi, Andre. Good to see you. Formerly of Bridge Street. Remind us where you are now, Andre. I used to work with Andre about 25 years ago. Aging us both there. Sorry about that. Veronica from Excel City Apartments in Sheffield. Hi, Veronica. And good to see you. Milton, thank you. Executive Suites by Roseman. I think I'll be forgiven for not remembering that name. Winnipeg, Canada. Thanks a lot, Milton, for adding that. Mary from sunny San Diego, Synergy Global Housing. Welcome, Mary, and thanks for coming along. So at this stage, I will, I think, run the sponsor ad again. You have to have time just to grab a cup of tea, a cup of water if you want in the break, and I'll see you in about 2 minutes. Right, welcome back. Before we dive into the conversation again, I'll just quickly mention the additional people. So we've got, where am I? Sorry. Paulicia Brown from Extended Stay America Hotels in Charlotte. Thanks for the info. Thanks for joining us, Paulicia. Georgiana, hello. I'm Georgiana from TR. Let us know what that is, Georgiana. Maybe, yeah. We've got Mary, and she puts the LinkedIn address out, thanks. Andre, More Than Hotels, Jersey. First time here listening on my way home. Andre, don't do that. You watch the road. I've watched too many Father Teds to see people drive off cliffs. Michael James, hello from rainy North California. I thought it was always sunny there. Sweet America, Corporate Housing. Thanks for joining us, Michael. And we have Georgiana, Trusted Stays. Okay, Trusted Stays. Thanks, Georgiana. Trusted Stays being in the same kind of group as Under the Doormat, I believe I'm right in saying. And Farzana, and there's Farzana's contact details. We've got Mark Shack, thanks for the invitation. Click to Rent. Hi Mark, thanks for coming along. And we've got Georgiana again. So please, people viewing, do add your name, say hi to us, where you are, your company details, also post questions and comments. Would love to hear and field your questions. And reassuringly, Andre's saying he's walking now, so that's great. Thanks, Andre. That would have distracted me otherwise. For those that don't know Father Ted, it's a comedy program about Catholic priests and various things. You should Google it. It's quite funny, but it's very funny. So going back into the conversation and trying to keep to the topic as such, but very, very happy to go off into other areas as well. But we've looked at the brand. We've discussed some of the models, but goodness knows by no means all of them at all. But the key drivers to change, and perhaps I could come to you Ben, if I may. The key drivers to what's changing in this notoriously fragmented marketplace, and on the models that have come out of those changes.
So, in my opinion, more often than not, it's either to do with a combination of technology or the real estate angle, right? So, if you look at, for example, why service departments, certainly in Europe and in the UK, are so popular now, it's Airbnb, right? Airbnb has brought this alternative to staying in a home, in a hotel, to everybody's attention. People now realize that they don't need to stay in a hotel. So we've got that now. Everybody realizes that. The fact is the product on Airbnb was always non-professional. Anything from, sofa surfing through to, private rental, operating on rent to rent with, possibly questionable decor, through to then the semi-professional firms that are, having their property managed by a hosting outfit. And then there's the professional supply. And sort of moving away from Airbnb now, this is kind of where we sit, right? We sit within professional supply of accommodation generally for business guests, but increasingly for leisure and also for people relocating. Technology has been one of the biggest drivers of the change. Now people can access it, and there are relatively low barriers to entry. Every man and woman and their dog are jumping on the bandwagon. Not everybody does it well. There are some professional operators, there's some highly professional ones here, in the UK, but there's also everybody else, right? So I think to be able to distinguish between professional operators and non-professional operators, that's why we have accreditation, and that's why we have some of these, leading brands that are really leading the charge. But at the other end of the spectrum, you've got what is driving the change from a real estate angle. I was mentioning in conversation earlier with Michelle, the build to rent sector and if you like the multifamily investment sector is really also what's driving change here, because for the first time here in the UK, institutional money and capital wants to access private rented accommodation, whether it's people staying long term or whether they're staying short term. Traditionally, the service department sector has never been considered investor grade. Now it's getting there. And you've got whole other asset classes coming up, which are appearing now. For example, co-living. And if we look at this all as operational real estate, it's just different stages in somebody's life. From purpose-built student accommodation, which resembles apartment hotels, but they are for people that are at university. And then when they leave university, more often than not, they can't afford to stay in that city, so they have to stay in private accommodation. And that's what co-living aims to do. It aims to provide something that's quite similar to the purpose-built student accommodation, but in a more, design aesthetic, a more stylish environment for people that are not studying. And then just after that, you've got your apartment hotels, and probably just beyond, you've got build to rent for people staying for a long time. So I think real estate often drives change.
Forgive me, what was that last sentence you said? You think real estate?
I think, I think real estate drives the change, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. And in that respect,
different types of properties. In the UK, service department operators, unless you were building your own properties, of which 2% did, the rest were operating on rent to rent. They were having to rent whatever they were given. So that is, an investor might build a block of 5 flats above commercial property and then make them available for an operator to rent. That's what they were given, and that's what that was the quality of serviced accommodation.
Yeah.
Whereas now there are so many different options for service department operators. Have never been so fortunate in the provision of accommodation for them to acquire, whether it's on a lease or a management contract. In my business, we work with landlords who are maybe they're taking a commercial building like an office and converting it under permitted development rights, and they turn it into a residential rented accommodation. They have no desire to rent this, as in to be an operator. They want the simplest route. They want to find somebody to take the burden away from them, and they want a master lease agreement. And that's what we do. We find them an operator that's prepared to hedge their bets, sign a lease agreement, and they do that because hopefully they're sensible and they've worked out their cash flow and they know that they've got a good margin in case the going's good or not. The case was last year, but the future looks bright. The sector's growing, and I think that more often than not, if you build them, they will come. This is a growth sector, and there's no doubt about it.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you for that. Yeah, it's good. A lot of questions have come out of that, but I'll move on at the moment, and then if we've got time, I'll come back to that. Michelle, does any of that sound familiar? Is the marketplace and therefore the models that need to service that marketplace, is that fragmenting at all in the States, or is it still a very kind of static product that's being offered?
No, absolutely. It's like 100% what Ben just said. And the funny thing is, I was looking into, with intern housing programs with universities throughout the US. In LA, I found a product, it's called pod living. I've never heard of pod living before. I don't know if you all have, but it's a communal building where it's like basically you have a pod to live in and maybe like a little, something to store your belongings in. And then the kitchen is shared, everything is shared. So it's almost like the area is shared, and then you just have a pod, and it's an inexpensive way to live in LA, let's say, because again, LA is a very expensive place to live. So it's good for, the younger generation if they're just getting out of college even too, and that's where they want to stay in cities. But I've never heard of pod living before until just recently, about a year and a half ago, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, again, to what Ben said, as far as, renting apartments out directly there's so much potential and so much opportunity with working with different properties here in the States. We can rent out a lot of properties. We'll do a 3-month lease term, or, some will do the 12 months. Obviously the pandemic affected that a little bit, I think, due to a lot of people had core inventory, and then all of a sudden some core inventory was pulled. But yeah, we work so much with properties. We can cater to specific needs. It's just, you can live in the city, you can live outside of the city, you can, whatever you deem or whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Where's the aside from perhaps the development of models to service the market, you have a kind of a unique perspective in that you operate in a number of geographical markets. And is the product different according to the country in which the property operates within a given brand?
Not necessarily. I think that we zoom in even more. So when you look at, and I mentioned this in the beginning, locks, for example, will be very much in tune with their surroundings. So we have Lehman Lock in Aldgate, which will have a different atmosphere than our lock in Munich, for example. I'm sitting here in a Cove in Canary Wharf, which is a very corporate building, much more so than a Zanzibar lock, for example, which is in the heart of the action in Dublin. So we very much look at the area we're in a specific city, and the building is a part of that specific part of town.
Right. Okay, thank you. There are a few more people coming in here. Michelle, you'll like to say. Lauren, great discussion. Yeah, exactly. Welcome, Lauren. Thanks for coming along, and thank you for that Michelle is with us today. Mike, it never ends Southern California. Yeah, okay. That's exactly what was confusing me, Mike. Thanks for that. And thanks for tuning in. Georgiana, if anyone's interested in accessing corporate and government travel bookings, trusted stay. So there you go. So they've done a lot with the NHS, I believe, as well in the past. So whilst we're talking about companies, by the way, I'd just like to say to operators out there, depending upon whether you're watching live or on the recording, so don't get too confused by that one. Alta Vita have gotten awards that they've extended, so it's no longer deadline tomorrow. So please, if you're an operator, then get in touch with Alta Vita and find out how you enter their awards. Ed, hi Ed, good to see you from Southern California, Global Business News. And Ed is asking, pods like College Dorm, is that how they are?
Ed, you know what? Google it, and then you'll see what it is. It is like a college dorm. I have not personally been to one myself. I've only seen pictures of what they look like on their websites. So it basically looks like you're staying in a little, like you have a little small bed. I don't know how many they put into a single room. And then you just have a communal living area. So I don't know, because I have not been there. I don't know how to explain it better than that. So definitely Google it and see what you see.
I know what you mean. So Veronica's saying pods in the US seem similar to co-living places in the UK. Not sure really, but
I've got a view on that. Yeah, because we're looking at new stuff that's being developed, and yeah, I mean, and to be honest, when you're an operator of serviced accommodation, and also you're used to, and certainly in the States where you're used to quite decent sized accommodation, and then you hear about these tiny micro units, they sound horrific, don't they? I think the thing is there is a purpose, and I guess there is also a need, right? And if they're designed cleverly, then you can, perhaps not you or maybe even me, but there are people out there, and there is a demographic and there is an age group that need it and want it. And in particular, there are some great concepts. There's one over in Germany called it's spelled POHA, POHA. The Pursuit of Happiness is the anagram, and their model is it's really interesting. It's kind of like an ecosystem that they build within the same block. They'll build sharing accommodation, so 2, 3, and 4 bed clusters, flats. So each bedroom has its own bathroom, and then it connects to a communal a dining and seating space, and there'll be combinations of that. So if you're looking for a flat share, a professional flat share, you go there. And if you want your own studio apartment, maybe 30 square meters or something, there will also be that there, so you can trade up, when you're sick of sharing. But then best still, you also have all of the communal space downstairs that is really the value add, because you get so much more space, more than you'd ever have, and you could ever really afford normally living in a busy city, where you have all the social space, and very much like the Lock hotels, where you have all that kind of space where you can hang out and collaborate and collide and do all those millennial things. So yeah, and the best thing about co-living is if it operates under the right use class, is it can be good for short stay and long stay. So I say, watch out, service department operators.
Yeah,
I agree.
Do your best.
It is a good concept. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you reminded me in one of the comments there, Ben, of how we regarded. I used to work for a hotel chain, a 4 to 5 star hotel chain, and with American guests coming over, there was always a concern because it's a difference in size, and we would joke that, well, now you've shown us the closet, now where's the room, kind of thing. Yeah. Because it's expectations, isn't it? And you'd probably think all of our apartments are pods. But we've got something here from Lauren that, thanks, Lauren. So common pod living example. Okay, great. Thanks for that. We've done that one. And we've got Aldo. Thanks for coming along, Aldo. Aldo from Cheval Collection. So great. By the way, I'll mention now that anybody, this is an experiment, but if anybody who is on the call would like to go onto Zoom afterwards, I've put a link together there. I've done a shortening of the link. It kicks off at 6 o'clock, I think. You can come in. No one will be there at 6, I don't think, because we'll probably be here. But there's the link going through if you want to join us, and I'll probably just be sitting there by myself. But there you go. But coming back to onto the drivers, so the real estate, also whatever the return to office kind of thing might look like, and whether it's hybrid, whether it's going to be the place is going to be full of desks. I listened to a webinar by International Hospitality Media earlier on today. It was really good. George Sell. And there were some great points made by Vivi from Alta Vita, talking about sustainability, actually, which was quite frightening. I don't know if I've scrolled it down here, but projections being that within 30 years, you might have cities or parts of cities simply disappearing because of a change in how we're living, how we're working, and the requirements of office space and residential space, what have you. Projections worth cities like Miami might just disappear. Parts of London, parts of Bangkok. No, don't ask me, please, but ask Vivi. But that's some of the research, and it was really fascinating. Return to office, and of course the big one on sustainability, sustainables, and that whole question, and throwing in there really the expectations of generations, and for example, I've forgotten who it was that made this point, but new companies coming along, moving fast, not even having time to develop a policy on travel. So they've not really got a compliant or non-compliant. So when they're moving people around, those people have got a lot of flexibility to just go and do stay wherever they want. So I found that quite interesting. And also coming back to your points, Ben, on real estate, somebody also made the point on flexibility within what you call it, asset class, or if that's the right term. I don't know, because I'm lost in that area. But where you've got right now, nobody wants studios, so you're turning studios into 2 beds. But then the demand for studios will come back at some point. So it's got to have that flexibility within a given building. So, it's
on the sustainability piece, Richard. I mean that is that, and it should be. It's really front of everybody's mind now, and it more so going forward. And considering the amount of institutional capital that is kind of out there looking to enter and access hospitality and also residential properties, the focus is now squarely on, can it be a sustainable build? Is there a reason to knock down that property? Can it be refurbished? And of course, you then have to flip it to the operators to say, well, if, for example, in the case of Fidelity, who have a huge amount of travel, they will have a policy on 2 things. One, is your stay essential? And obviously that will affect all the service department operators. Where before in Europe and also in the US, you're going to get people that will fly from state to state, from place to place, just for a day trip, or just for for 2 nights. That is going to be slim right down in favor of, and I guess this is the bonus for service accommodation, more essential extended stay trips. But then in terms of operations, the operators also need to demonstrate that they're doing their level best, not just removing single-use plastics, but actually really getting to grips with becoming zero carbon. Brands like Room 2, who are they're a UK hotel brand. They're the first brand to publicly say that we are on a mission to completely sustainable net zero. And their first apartment hotel in central London, in West London, sorry, in Chiswick, is the world's first completely whole life sustainable net zero carbon development, which is all credit to them. You're also seeing smaller service department operators entering and looking to grow portfolio and really capture the interest and the imagination of these key bookers, companies like Beyond Apartments, They're based in central London in Great Portland Street. They've got some stunning flats there, and they are all about sustainability. Everything from the cleaning products that they use through to waste delivery. All they are ticking all the right boxes right now, and I think that more so your key bookers will be making the decisions based for their employees booking accommodation here in the UK and abroad based on these sustainability factors.
Absolutely.
Go
I've
go
got
ahead.
to go, Richard. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you
Michelle.
so
Really
much.
appreciate
It was so nice meeting everybody.
So, yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye.
No, I
Sorry,
completely agree, Ben, that that sustainability is such a key at the moment. For me personally, to be honest, way more important than technology, because it's 2021. We all have an iPhone or two, but sustainability is literally what it's all about when you speak to corporate clients. And we have green leaves in our logo. Sustainability is a big part. We have the Cambridge lock. Ben, I don't know if you've seen anything about that one.
Turing Lock.
Yeah,
I've not
Turing
seen
Lock.
it yet. I've not seen it yet. I need to come and see.
So it's in Eddington, which is just outside of Cambridge, but it's a sustainable area basically. So that will probably be an area of the city that will be here for a long time, Richard. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm going to say that when we look at the last couple of years, that sustainability for me is definitely something that stands out when you look at the importance.
Thanks, Wesley, and I think that it's general agreement that it's not going to go away, is it? I mean, we've had the Greens as a political party in Germany for half my lifetime, I think, and but now it seems like it's for real, as it were. So it is great. I think perhaps I'll make a suggestion that I'll run through the comments that are coming in from the audience to give them that opportunity. If there's any questions, then field that. Otherwise, I'll then give you the opportunity for us to cover anything that we might not have covered that you want to comment on in this particular broadcast, and then we'll bring it to a close. Unless, do you want me to do? Is anybody about to miss the bus? Does anybody want me to close it any earlier? How are you? Are you okay, Ben? Still for another 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah, I've got 10 minutes left. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's see what's coming in here. We've got Ed there. Yeah, we've done that one, haven't we? Known Ed for years. Pods like College Dorm. We've done these. Right, Veronica. Pods in the US seem similar to co-living places in the UK. Was listening to a planning meeting of Sheffield's council yesterday, and one of the applications was for a co-living building near the city centre. The planning officer recommended approval, but councillors had mixed views. In the end, it was approved with 2 councillors abstaining. Oh, interesting. Ed introducing very cool vacation rentals. And indeed, Richard, lots on smart cities around the world. And of course, thanks, Veronica. Veronica has recently done a broadcast with International Hospitality Media, I think it was, on sustainability, or with Ben Brown at Love and Reload, may have been. Ed, click on Big Bear. What's this? Metro Snow Summit goes up 9,000 feet. I'm guessing that's got to do with the vacation link. Click on Big Bear. Very cool vacation. All right, and then we've got Raj. Given corporates are traveling less and staying, they'll travel less as part of their climate change policies. Do service department operators need to focus on shorter stays? So, yeah. Wesley?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do think that, well, obviously, we've been focusing the last 18 odd months on business segments that we, that were different to us. Staycations and leisure were not necessarily the key focus markets for Eden, as we have, the extended stay and the business traveler very high on the agenda. But we are lucky enough that we have the different brands that cater for the different length of stays. But funny enough, I do see the fact that we're still quite steady in the length of stays, and there's not a massive change, to be honest, at the moment in the books.
Right. Ben, did you have any comments on that regarding any properties in the pipeline and whether they are kind of gearing up to longer stays or shorter stays?
Well, a lot of the properties in the pipeline or things that are being purpose-built with a hotel use class, if it has a hotel use class, then they want to be able to capture greater that profitability sweet spot where they have the occupancy of a service department, or at least getting there, but the average length of stay of one, but the flexibility and the bookability, and I guess the visibility of a hotel. So that's what an apart hotel does. A typical hotel will have a stay of 1.5 nights, right? And an apart hotel will be somewhere between 3 and 7 nights. So it's so much shorter than a service department, but it's more profitable because you don't have to clean it as much. And you also get repeat corporate guests. And there are just, layer upon layer of reasons why it is more, it's a more interesting concept. And that's why the majority of the things that we have in the pipeline are under use class C1, which is basically hotel. They're designed like apartments, though.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose we've looked back to the brand thing there when you said about visibility, then, it's the bigger brands are likely to be, in that asset class.
But the small brands of today are the big brands of tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Yeah, definitely. It works across all areas, really. That's right. People striving to communicate with a manager, then all of a sudden find that someone else that they've been dismissive of is the manager now, and they'll go speak to them. So yeah, it works all in all parts of life, doesn't it? This is a massive question, and we probably don't have time for it, but I don't know if anybody wants to give a shot at the answer. The future, what's the best format for the future? Sir Milton has for many years been running a brand in the States, in Canada, initially Calgary and then Winnipeg. If you were to say, right, set up like this, do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's a bit of a tough one. You're probably in a better position, Ben, but you might have an opinion, Wes, as well. So
I think, look, from my opinion, and I'm not an operator, I'm working in the delivery of the product, if you like, in real estate. I think it's no surprise that firms like Eden now have numerous brands. It's because if you look at some of the largest hotel groups in the world, Accor, they have hundreds of, I don't know how many brands, right? And they have, within those brands, they have apartment hotel brands, and they have extended stay, and they have this level, and they have that level. And the service department sector has really come on a very long way. Eden, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the only companies that has this sort of delivery of different brands, and they actually have product within those different brands, rather than, for example, Bridge Street, that had sort of 10 brands that didn't really exist, that they wanted to try and roll out. And I think the future is being agile and being in operational real estate and being a hospitality professional, so that you can adapt the product to the ever changing need of the guest. Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, bit of a
can only echo that. Yeah, that is true.
You really can't predict the future. This is moving far too fast.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was Claire Barry in the webinar earlier on. I mean, this is totally different now. This is about the return of the market, but predicting that things would be returning to normal sometime in January 22 with the global mobility side of things, demand. So yeah, we're probably pushing towards the end. I'll say to anybody that's watching this live, please join us on Zoom. And there's the URL at the bottom there. But are there any closing comments that you'd like to make, Ben or Wesley?
It's very, it's not very polite, but I'll steal Ben's last comment because it really, really resonated with me. I think, yeah, the future is being agile. I think that's it's a very nice way to end this conversation, actually.
Mm-hmm. And I would just say all the hopes about business returning next year. Watch this space. I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but if you saw the PwC presentation yesterday, we're looking at being what, I don't know, was it 10% behind pre-pandemic ADR at Q4 next year? So don't believe the hype. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've because they've just moved out of they've just sold that global mobility side of things, haven't they, as well? So yeah. Yeah. But we'll be back. We'll be back one day, and it will be a better world with a more sustainable product and what have you. But I would like to thank you, Michelle, at the moment in her absence. But thank you very much for being part of the discussion. Thanks, Shabina. Thank you for being there. Milton, thank you all, and that's it. I think we've covered it. So thank you very much indeed, Wesley and Ben, for being part of this discussion. It's really, such a can of worms that you can only just scratch the surface, really. But thank you for your insights and your contribution. Really appreciated it. So I'll now play the outro, at which stage I always advise people to leave the stage, because when the outro finishes, then you just left staring at the camera, and it's usually just me. But yeah,
thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Take care. No, great pleasure. Thank you.